Good evening. Tonight, we delve into a series of economic decisions that have reshaped global trade dynamics. In 2025, former President Donald Trump imposed some of the largest tariffs on a range of goods from Asian countries. These significant levies were designed to alter the flow of commerce, protect American industries, and exert geopolitical pressure. The repercussions have been felt across continents, impacting businesses, consumers, and international relations. Today, we will explore the top 10 biggest tariffs enacted during this period and meticulously examine their impact. From the bustling electronics factories of China to the automotive plants in Japan, no corner of Asian manufacturing was left untouched. We aim to provide a comprehensive, factual analysis, allowing you to draw your own informed conclusions. We believe in presenting information clearly and directly, helping you understand the intricate web of cause and effect that defines modern international trade. We'll be looking at the stated goals of these tariffs, the immediate economic shifts they caused, and the longer-term implications that are still unfolding. Stay with us as we unpack these critical developments. We begin with the sweeping tariffs imposed on Chinese electronics. This sector, a cornerstone of China's export economy, found itself directly in the crosshairs of the Trump administration's trade offensive. The tariffs, ranging from 25% to 60%, sent shockwaves through the industry. The rationale was to address perceived unfair trade practices and the trade imbalance. The immediate impact on the electronics market was one of disruption and uncertainty. Supply chains faced immense pressure. American companies reliant on Chinese manufacturing scrambled to assess the increased costs. Some absorbed the initial blow, impacting their profit margins, while others passed these costs on to consumers. Companies explored diversification strategies, looking to shift production to other Asian nations or even considering reshoring. Trade relations between the U.S. and China deteriorated further. Beijing responded with retaliatory tariffs on American goods, escalating the trade war. Diplomatic channels were fraught with tension, and the rhetoric from both sides became increasingly pointed. The tariffs were a clear signal of a more confrontational American stance towards China's technological ambitions. This impacted not only bilateral trade figures but also global investor confidence. For consumers, the effects were tangible. The price of new smartphones, laptops, and other electronic devices saw noticeable increases. Beyond just the final product, the tariffs on components meant that even devices assembled elsewhere could see price adjustments if they relied on Chinese-made parts. This led to a period of careful consideration for many households when it came to tech upgrades. The dream of ever-cheaper, more powerful electronics hit a significant roadblock. Looking back, the tariff on Chinese electronics in 2025 served as a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy. It forced a re-evaluation of supply chain resilience and accelerated discussions about economic decoupling. The long-term effects on innovation, market dominance, and U.S.-China relations continue to be debated and analyzed. Next, we turn our attention to Japan and the significant tariffs imposed on its automotive exports to the United States. The Japanese auto industry, a global powerhouse, has long been a major player in the American market. The 2025 tariffs targeted both fully assembled vehicles and critical auto parts. The stated aims were to protect American manufacturing jobs and reduce the trade deficit. The imposition of these tariffs, reportedly in the range of 20% to 25%, sent ripples across the entire automotive sector. Japanese automakers with significant U.S. sales like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan faced a difficult calculus. They had to decide whether to absorb the substantial new costs or pass them on to American consumers. Many of these companies had already made substantial investments in manufacturing plants within the United States. The impact on U.S.-Japan trade relations was immediate and palpable. Japan, a long-standing ally of the United States, voiced strong objections to the tariffs. There were concerns that these measures could unravel decades of carefully cultivated economic interdependence. While Japan was initially hesitant to engage in direct retaliatory measures, the tariffs undoubtedly strained diplomatic ties. For American consumers, the most direct consequence was the potential for higher car prices. Dealerships braced for changes in inventory and demand. Furthermore, the tariffs on auto parts had a cascading effect, impacting American auto manufacturers who relied on Japanese components. This highlighted the complexity of modern automotive supply chains. Ultimately, the tariffs on Japanese automobiles forced a strategic rethink within the industry. Some Japanese firms accelerated plans to expand their U.S.-based production facilities. The policy also spurred renewed debate within the U.S. about the effectiveness of tariffs as a tool for job creation. The long shadow of these automotive tariffs continues to influence decisions in boardrooms and government offices on both sides of the Pacific. Our focus is the tariff on South Korean steel. The 2025 tariffs hit South Korean producers hard. The administration cited national security and protecting domestic production. Companies like POSCO and Hyundai faced increased difficulty accessing the U.S. market. This forced them to seek alternative markets. The global steel market experienced further instability. Bilateral trade relations were strained. This episode highlighted the far-reaching consequences of protectionist measures. We now shift our focus to the Indian subcontinent and the tariffs imposed on its vibrant textile industry. India, with its rich history in fabric production, has traditionally been a key supplier to the American market. The 2025 tariffs on Indian textiles were presented as a measure to level the playing field for American textile manufacturers. The impact of these tariffs was deeply felt within India. Thousands of small and medium-sized enterprises found their access to the U.S. market curtailed. Orders were canceled or reduced, leading to concerns about job losses and economic hardship. Exporters struggled with the new cost structures, making their products less competitive. U.S.-India economic relations encountered a significant hurdle. The Indian government expressed strong disappointment and concern, engaging in diplomatic discussions to seek a resolution. There were talks of retaliatory measures, though India often sought negotiation over immediate escalation. The tariffs highlighted the complexities of trade between a developed economy like the U.S. and a developing one like India. For American consumers and retailers, the tariffs meant potentially higher prices for clothing and home furnishings. Retailers who relied heavily on Indian suppliers had to either absorb the increased costs or find alternative sourcing options. This led to a period of adjustment in the fashion and home goods industries. The long-term effects on the Indian textile market included a push towards diversification. There was also an increased focus within India on strengthening its domestic market. The 2025 textile tariffs served as a stark lesson in the vulnerabilities of export-oriented industries. Our journey now takes us to Vietnam, a significant manufacturing hub for footwear. Many global brands had shifted production to Vietnam, drawn by its competitive labor costs. The 2025 tariffs imposed on Vietnamese footwear aimed to curb a rapidly growing import surge. The imposition of these duties created immediate challenges for Vietnamese manufacturers. Vietnam had benefited from companies diversifying away from China, but now it found itself directly targeted. The increased costs associated with the tariffs threatened to erode Vietnam's competitive advantage. Factories faced the prospect of reduced orders, and there were concerns about the impact on employment. Trade dynamics between the U.S. and Vietnam faced a significant test. The Vietnamese government engaged in dialogues with U.S. officials, emphasizing its commitment to fair trade practices. The situation was complex, as Vietnam was also seen as a beneficiary of trade tensions with China. For American consumers, the most likely outcome was an increase in the price of athletic shoes and other types of imported shoes. Major footwear brands had to make tough decisions about pricing and sourcing. Some may have explored shifting production yet again, or considered absorbing some of the costs. The tariffs also reignited discussions about expanding footwear manufacturing within the United States. In the longer term, the tariffs on Vietnamese footwear underscored the precariousness of relying heavily on a single export market. It likely spurred Vietnamese businesses to further diversify their export destinations. The episode served as a reminder that in the world of international trade, today's favored manufacturing location can become tomorrow's tariff target. We now turn to a commodity that has been both economically vital and environmentally controversial: palm oil. Malaysia is one of the world's largest producers and exporters of palm oil. The 2025 tariffs on Malaysian palm oil were justified on several grounds, including allegations of unfair subsidies and environmental concerns. The impact of these tariffs on the Malaysian palm oil market was significant. The United States represented a valuable market for refined and specialized palm oil products. The tariffs made Malaysian palm oil less competitive compared to other vegetable oils. This put pressure on Malaysian producers and exporters. Trade relations between the U.S. and Malaysia faced a point of friction over this issue. The Malaysian government strongly contested the tariffs, arguing that its palm oil industry was making strides in sustainability. They highlighted the importance of the palm oil sector to Malaysia's economy. This led to diplomatic exchanges and efforts to address the concerns raised by the U.S. For American industries that use palm oil, the tariffs meant increased input costs. They faced the choice of absorbing these costs, reformulating products, or passing the higher prices on to consumers. This also brought the debate about sustainable sourcing to the forefront. In the broader context, the tariffs on Malaysian palm oil highlighted the growing intersection of trade policy with environmental and social governance issues. For Malaysia, it reinforced the need to continuously improve sustainability practices. The episode served as a reminder of the complexities of international trade. Our investigation now takes us to the coastal waters and processing plants of Thailand, a global leader in seafood exports. The 2025 tariffs on Thai seafood were implemented amidst ongoing concerns about illegal fishing and labor practices. The tariffs represented a direct economic consequence imposed by a major importing nation. The imposition of these tariffs created significant challenges for the Thai seafood industry. Thai exporters faced higher barriers to entry into the U.S. market. This threatened to reduce export volumes and impact the profitability of Thai seafood companies. Bilateral trade relations between the U.S. and Thailand were tested by these measures. The Thai government found itself under increased pressure. They engaged with U.S. authorities, highlighting the progress made in addressing concerns. The situation underscored the complexities of using trade sanctions to enforce labor and environmental standards. For American consumers, the tariffs on Thai seafood meant the potential for higher prices. Restaurants and food retailers had to consider alternative suppliers or adjust their pricing. This also provided an opening for domestic U.S. fisheries to argue for greater market share. In the long run, these tariffs likely accelerated efforts within Thailand to improve traceability and sustainability. It also may have encouraged Thai exporters to diversify their markets. The episode served as a potent example of how trade policy can influence domestic policies in other nations. We now examine the impact of U.S. tariffs on Indonesian rubber. Indonesia is one of the world's top producers of natural rubber. The 2025 tariffs on Indonesian rubber were justified by the need to support domestic synthetic rubber producers. The tariffs placed considerable strain on the Indonesian rubber industry. Rubber cultivation in Indonesia is dominated by smallholder farmers. The imposition of U.S. tariffs threatened to depress prices for Indonesian rubber. Exporters of processed rubber and rubber-based products also faced increased costs. U.S.-Indonesian trade relations encountered a significant bump in the road. The Indonesian government voiced its concerns, arguing that its rubber industry operated on market principles. Negotiations ensued, with Indonesia seeking to demonstrate the importance of its rubber exports. The tariffs highlighted the vulnerability of commodity-dependent economies to protectionist measures. For American industries, particularly tire manufacturers, the tariffs on Indonesian natural rubber meant an increase in the cost of a vital raw material. Companies faced the choice of absorbing these higher costs or seeking alternative sources of natural rubber. Looking ahead, the tariffs on Indonesian rubber likely prompted a renewed focus within Indonesia on increasing domestic consumption. It also may have encouraged further investment in research to improve the productivity and sustainability of rubber cultivation. This episode served as another example of how tariffs on raw materials can have ripple effects throughout global supply chains, ultimately impacting consumers and multiple downstream industries. Our focus is on semiconductors, a sector of immense strategic importance. Taiwan is home to some of the world's most advanced semiconductor foundries, including TSMC. The 2025 tariffs on Taiwanese semiconductors were driven by national security concerns. Tariffs sent tremors through the global tech industry. These components are the brains of the digital world. Disruptions had immediate and far-reaching consequences. Taiwanese firms navigated a complex geopolitical landscape. The U.S. was a major market and partner, but new trade measures complicated this relationship. U.S.-Taiwan trade relations entered a delicate phase. Intensive discussions ensued. Many U.S. tech companies rely heavily on Taiwanese foundries. The implications for the global technology sector were profound. Increased costs could translate into higher prices for electronic devices. This spurred efforts to build domestic semiconductor manufacturing capacity in the U.S. It raised questions about the future of globalized tech supply chains. Actions in 2025 underscored the critical strategic value of this technology. It highlighted vulnerabilities in a geographically concentrated supply chain. Taiwan balanced economic interests with complex security dynamics. The chip wars became a tangible reality of international trade and security policy. The long-term effects continue to be debated. Finally, we conclude our survey with the tariffs imposed on electronics from the Philippines. The Philippines has carved out a significant niche in the global electronics supply chain. The 2025 tariffs on Filipino electronics were framed as part of the broader effort to protect American jobs. The impact on the Philippine electronics sector was a cause for considerable concern. Even moderate tariffs could erode the competitiveness of Philippine-based manufacturers. Companies operating in the Philippines had to reassess their cost structures and supply chain strategies. U.S.-Philippines trade relations faced another stress point. The Philippine government likely engaged in diplomatic efforts to mitigate the impact of the tariffs. The situation would have been closely watched by other Southeast Asian nations. For American companies that source components or finished electronic goods from the Philippines, the tariffs presented a familiar challenge. Given the specialized nature of some of the electronics work done in the Philippines, finding quick alternatives might not have been straightforward. This could lead to disruptions or increased costs for certain segments of the U.S. tech industry. The tariffs on Filipino electronics reinforced the Trump administration's commitment to a more protectionist trade agenda. It signaled that even countries with established trade relationships were not immune to such measures. For the Philippines, it likely spurred further efforts to diversify its export markets and enhance the resilience of its manufacturing sector. The tariffs imposed by President Trump in 2025 marked a significant chapter in the ongoing narrative of global trade. As we've explored today, these 10 major tariffs on Asian countries created ripples that extended far beyond mere economic statistics. The stated goals of protecting American industries and jobs were met with a complex reality of retaliatory measures and strained international relations. The long-term efficacy and wisdom of these policies continue to be subjects of intense debate. The landscape of international commerce is ever-evolving, shaped by political decisions and technological advancements. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for navigating our interconnected world.